The procedural vote to move forward with the unfinished bipartisan infrastructure bill has failed in the Senate. The final vote was 49 to 51, with every Republican, including the ones working on the bill, voting against. It needed 60 votes to pass. The vote was intended to pressure the group of lawmakers into quickly finishing negotiations. Senators working on the legislation say they will keep at it. In a joint statement, they write in part, "We will continue working hard to ensure we get this critical legislation right and are optimistic that we will finalize and be prepared to advance this historic bipartisan proposal to strengthen America's infrastructure and create good-paying jobs in the coming days," end quote. Meanwhile, new polling shows the overwhelming majority of American voters in key swing districts support both a bipartisan infrastructure bill and a separate social spending bill. But there is one condition, and a big one. Most voters say they only support that second bill if it is backed by both parties. With us now, the people behind that poll, Chief Strategist for No Labels, Ryan Clancy, and pollster Amy Levitin. Good morning to you both. Ryan, I'll begin with you here in the studio with us. Walk us through the polling. It looks like 72% of Americans support a bipartisan effort. Yep. At this legislation, but they don't want to spend too much money, it appears. Yeah,
72% support the bipartisan infrastructure bill. 76% want it alone. They don't want it linked to anything else. So, I mean, what's original about this poll is there's a lot of polling out there about this infrastructure spending, but a lot of it's national, a lot of it's party funded to conveniently give them the answers they want. A lot of it just looks at a specific provision. Are you for or against two-year college? This is the first poll that really gets into the districts, the 33 districts, 20 are swing districts that are going to decide the 22 midterms, to really look at a granular level. What do people want? What are the trade-offs they're willing to accept? And, it's interesting.
So despite that procedural vote yesterday, Jake Sherman was just on with us a minute ago saying he, too, is optimistic that this bipartisan package is going to get done. But if you go down into your polling, 57% of the people you talk to say, we want the bipartisan bill. That looks good. We like parties working together, bridges, roads, and all that. But this $4.7 trillion package that the White House and Democrats are talking about goes too far.
Yeah, I want to give you some findings that really just get to the public's collective unease. Once you start getting to those numbers, we asked a question where we said, if there was that level of spending, what would concern you? And here's what we got. We got 74% would be concerned with runaway inflation, 78% that it would be higher taxes on them personally down the line, 69% lower growth, 69% a negative impact on my family's finances. So it's not that they're against the specific provisions, but collectively, you get to these kind of numbers, they get nervous.
Hey, Amy, Jonathan Lemire. We just talked about there is some hope here for this bipartisan deal, and the White House is the same, according to our reporting, that they believe they were very encouraged by Mitt Romney yesterday, saying, hey, 10, 11 Republicans, they could be on board next week. But we know that though there is sincere hope that it gets done, there's also a subplot to this, that the Democrats felt like they needed to make a bipartisan effort to show the moderates, to reassure the moderates in their own ranks, Senators Manchin and Sinema, hey, we tried. So even if it falls apart, that might make them more comfortable going big, going alone for this reconciliation bill, which would only grow if infrastructure had to be put into that. But what does your polling show? What the threshold that Americans want to see in terms of a cost? But also, if this were to fall apart, is there a sense as to which party would take more of the blame? How would that play out?
It's an excellent question. And again, I think this poll is really unique because it does ask some of the edgier, interesting questions around that. I think what it really shows is there are a lot of positive news, right? A high degree of consensus, both, as you say, and the president saw, for the initiative the president is selling hard on reconciliation. There's a lot more work to be done, first and foremost, because voters really overwhelmingly want bipartisan support. I think that there is awareness of if one party was to ram it through with razor thin support, it's not going to bode well really for them. What voters want is there's bipartisan support for bipartisan support, if you will. And to Ryan's point a minute ago, there's a lot of concern about the impact on personal finance, high inflation, impact on the economy, if it is to be rammed through.
Mara Gay, I wonder what your thoughts are on these results, again, focusing on key swing districts. What do you make of these?
Well, I think what it means is that the Democrats are not going to move until that they are satisfied that they have found some consensus and that they can really show the American people and reassure Democrats in swing districts that they are going to be protected. There are various ways to do that. So I actually think behind the scenes there's some confidence on this. There are a lot of local issues, remember, that these swing district members want to deliver on to their members. And really, all politics is local. So what we're talking about here is probably pork. But that's how you get deals done in Washington. And I do think there's some confidence that this can be accomplished.
So, Ryan, the case against this big package that Republicans have made is a lot of this isn't really infrastructure spending, that Democrats are taking some liberties with the definition of infrastructure. The Democrats say, well, the definition of infrastructure has changed since it was just bridges, roads, and tunnels. What do the American people think? Do they believe, yes, it should be this hard infrastructure that we've come to know over generations, or are they buying into the idea that there's more to it now?
We actually asked this question specifically, and it's clear Democratic and Republican leaning districts. When people think of infrastructure, they think of the traditional definition: roads, bridges, water, broadband. The other stuff, it's social spending. Doesn't mean they don't like it, but they classify it differently.
Amy, what's your take on that? Who's winning the argument? Republicans saying this is not actually infrastructure, a lot of what Democrats are talking about.
Yeah, I mean, the support is really muted at best once you add in what's considered social spending. I mean, when do we see 7 in 10 voters across, I think it's 87% of Democrats, 70 independents, and 55% of Republican-leaning voters supporting what's seen as kind of pure infrastructure? And that does fall when you add in social spending with the price tag.
Interesting stuff. Amy Levitin, Ryan Clancy, thanks for bringing us these new numbers this morning. Good to see you both. Coming up next here, the White House is ratcheting up pressure on social media platforms to do more to contain vaccine misinformation. We'll have an exclusive look at how anti-vaccine messaging has been spreading. Plus, Assistant Speaker Katherine Clark joins us to weigh in on Nancy Pelosi's decision to block 2 of Kevin McCarthy's picks for the January 6th committee. More